Pictures proudly
Now that was a good movie.
I love this movie. It was genius.
Well, when the end of the Hays Code came around, you had the rise of the MPAA, which basically changed the whole parameter as far as ratings and what can be filmed, put up on the screen. Because when you look back and you look at the 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s, you had a renaissance of filmmaking. And, I go back and, there's been many discussions where we talk about the porn industry. And I've always said this, that porn is an art. Not every porn film, not every magazine, but there is a semblance of pornography as artwork. And there's plenty of it in many museums and art galleries today. And I've said this a couple of times. Hollywood created porn movies. Yeah, that's right. Hollywood made porn movies because at the time, with the MPAA, what they described as pornography sometimes is a little different to what we consider today. Now it's considered NC-17 at some points. Other movies still embrace that X rating. I mean, we had movies like Caligula. Caligula just got re-released at Cannes, and basically it was the anniversary of it, and it was acclaimed by critics. It was a fantastically well-filmed movie. But people say, well, with all the sex scenes and everything like that, no. Take it for the granted of how it was filmed, and the looks, the costumes, the designs onto there, because there are people in the porn industry that is doing the same as well. Then you have films that did not deserve to have an X rating on there, like Midnight Cowboy, perfect example. That happens to be one movie. Last Tango in Paris. I believe that got the X rating just for one particular scene alone. Even though the movie happens to be a very good movie. Same thing with Midnight Cowboy. For it to get the X rating, that was then. The MPAA was much different then. Now they've just become a shell of the Hays Code once again. But in this video, we are going to discuss the return of one of the top erotic movies returning to the big screen very soon because it's being filmed right now. It's in pre-production overseas in France. And I'll tell you this, it's had a lot of films in the last several decades. And one thing about the producers and the people that have worked on it, they've embraced the X rating that they had. And this would be considered a movie of an artistic expression. Well, if you're not familiar with the movie Emmanuelle, then you haven't really seen an erotic movie of this nature. Based on the 1967 novel, in the 70s, it was made into several movies. From 1974 to 1984, and also again in 1983, Sylvia Kristel played the main leading role in there. She was fantastic in there. If you haven't seen it, this is really one of the best erotic films out there to get an X rating. And I'll tell you, very well shot. A lot of these films are well shot. I mean, considering that they've been making movies since the 70s, going into the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. I mean, you've had movies go from one part of the world to the next, to outer space, Dracula, ghosts. I mean, you've had various film versions of this movie. You've had 3 women play the main role. Sylvia Kristel is one of them. Monique Gabriella and Natalie Uher are the 3 women that have played the roles in this movie series. But very soon you're going to have to add the name of Nomi Merlant, who is the next actress to portray this role as the French director Audrey Diwan, who's going to be remaking Emmanuelle. Let's read a little bit of this off of XBiz. We're going to take a little part of this on there. Award-winning French director Audrey Diwan will begin shooting her remake of the 1970s erotic classic Emmanuelle next month with Nomi Merlant in the title role. Merlant will replace Leah Seydoux, who's originally tapped for the role of the diplomat's wife in Bangkok, who experiences a sexual awakening. The role of Emmanuelle was made famous by Sylvia Kristel in the 1974 by Justin Jacqueline, which spawned a series of increasing outlandish sequels. And yeah, and that was the one true thing about it. The sequel after sequel after sequel just got really insane on there, but well worth the watch. The new adaptation, co-starring Anna Maria Valtolomé, will be based on Emmanuelle Arson's original 1967 novel, with script co-written by Diwan and fellow filmmaker Rebecca Zolowatsky. Production company Wild Bunch International and CAA Media Finance introduced the project to prospective buyers at Cannes in May. The film will reportedly be shot in English on location in Paris, Hong Kong, and between late September and the end of the year. Now, the thing about, when you look at this, when this movie was originally released, the original 1974 movie, most people didn't realize, take it for the example of Rocky Horror Picture Show and how many years that movie lasted playing throughout, still to this day. The original 74 Emmanuelle, basically, even with the X rating, played in one particular theater for over 11 years. This played in Paris to packed houses. I mean, the DVD revenue alone was something like $650 million. I don't know if that's 2023 dollars or if that's dollars from back then when it was released. Most likely it's probably from back then, so it would be a lot more money today. I mean, you even had her character was part of a video game released in '89 by Coca Television, which was of the same name, Emmanuelle or Emmanuella. As my wife points out, the pronunciation is Emmanuelle. But the thing is, the videos have been around for quite some time. Many plays on Cinemax or on Cinemax late night. There are various edits versions of the movie, especially 4, 5, and 6, which had some scenes removed for the DVD version. It depends on which one you got. There was a director's cut version put out, but yet believe it was only available overseas. I think it was one of the Emmanuelle 4 had a version called the 4X on VHS in the 1980s. But like I said, let me pull back on this, and I'll say, beautifully shot films at beautiful locations. Yes, it had sex in it. Yes, they were explicit on there. Not to the explicit of a full porn movie, but it would be considered one, and it's still considered X-rated by most companies on there. If you look at the back of the boxes on some of these, even though some companies have tried to sell it with an NC-17 rating on there, but it's actually falls through more closer to X. But this is what I talk about. This is what I keep saying, that in the industry itself, in the porn industry, there are artistic movies that are out there and will be. There, like I said before, there was in one of my other videos, there's a company that's doing a horror series, sort of similar, based on the movie Slither. Yes, you know where I'm going at with it, because basically tentacle monsters and all this type of situation. But the way it's shot, if you look at the way it's shot, and other than the grotesque factor, if you remove it from a sexual point of view and leave it the way it is, without putting in the sex value, it would be a gruesome horror movie in the mainstream Hollywood. It goes to show you what lines are between what people chastise, and I read this on Twitter. So they should say porn should go away. Porn is one type of entertainment. Nobody is telling you to watch it. But I'll tell you this. I'll tell you straight out. There are some out there. There are some porn movies or movies from an X rating that are worth the watch. Caligula is one of them. Emmanuelle is another one. And there are many others. And that's what people, they don't understand. And the main reason why people they say, well, we got to get rid of porn, all these politicians, is they're using that as a bridge to try to censor you or to try to pass other policies that will infringe on your constitutional rights here in the U.S. and also in other countries. Because you have to understand, there are other countries that are going through some stuff that's similar, and some of this has been successful over there. And you've had countries like Russia and France and Australia that have banned certain things. They'll ban certain things and they won't ban others. You have to remember that. Think of what they push to shut down and what they push to not push away. And remember, this particular film series, Studio Canal, is one of the main companies that puts this out on DVD and Blu-ray. I mean, you can go through the listings of how many movies that there's been. The first 2-line series were French, made for France TV. The rest were USA made. Stuff like Emmanuelle in Rio, Sex Goddess versus Dracula, I mean, you go through the line. Sex Chocolate and Emmanuelle. That's the Emmanuelle through time. I mean, the time travel here we got in a way. And there's a couple of documentaries on there you do catch in the last 10 years. I mean, we haven't had a new Emmanuelle God, it is a little over a decade now. Goes to show you the staying power of this series and the continuation of it by a new director. Now, if you look up the new director, she has only one really, and they say award winning. It's one of her first directorials. She wins an award. I think the movie was called Happening. But most of her other is that she's been a writer for quite some time now. Not too many on there. But if she does any justice to this series, it'll be a nice look at to see the continuation of a series that have been around since the 1970s. Put that in your perspective. Put that in perspective. An erotic classic that has been around since the 1970s, continuing to make movies, continuing to making sequels and spin-offs. And, you hope it ends up to be the same caliber as the original 6 films were. And like I said, I don't push you to see pornography, but at least catch the original, so at least you can understand what I'm talking about. It is available out there. And as I said before, this is art, artistic expression. But who am I to say but a madman with the show? Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to share this video. Hit the like, notification bell, and hopefully maybe today's the day I've earned your subscription. Once again, we are on vacation, and we'll be back in September with some great content for you. New episodes of Madman with the Show, Fast 5, and also the return of Madman Cafe exclusively on Rumble. And also, if you want to help support a content creator like me, there are 2 ways to do it. Below is listing in our description. You can make a fast one-time donation, even for a cup of coffee. It would greatly be appreciated. It's listed below. And also, we do have a merch shop, which this month for back to school, we'll be offering an additional 10% off. Be sure to use our promo code of summer 10 and get an additional 10% off your next purchase. Thank you for clicking on this video. We'll see you on the next one. And don't forget, support your local content creator.